to live their life filled with passion, purpose, and fun. Chantel adores working with parents who are seeking deeper understanding in raising today's children and teens through conscious parenting and an intuitive approach to understanding our children. Chantel works remotely with clients around the world, and she is the mother of 2 children, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. If you want to reach out to Chantel after you hear her marvelous, conversation today, you can email her at yourconsciouslifecoach@gmail.com. Welcome, Chantel.
Hi, Sheila. It's so awesome to be here. And then I would say it's consciously awesome to be. So thank you so much
Consciously
for
awesome
having
to
me.
have you. You're
Thanks.
welcome. Of course. Thank you. So, as soon as I, knew I was gonna do this show and invite guests on, I knew that I was gonna want to have you on to talk about conscious parenting because you have been an advocate and passionate about that before you even had children. So, let's start, if you will, with, telling us what you consider conscious parenting.
So conscious parenting to me is really looking at parenting in a very, very different way. So seeing that parenting is not one size fits all. And even for some listeners here today or viewers, you might be thinking like, oh, this isn't for me. And that's okay. But to really look at the fact that our children, as well as our teens, are, yeah, they might have little bodies, but they have these big souls within these little bodies. And being able to honor your child's journey while also honoring the soul inside and where they're meant to go on their path. So
That's beautiful.
supporting that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for me, I think the soul is a key component that, I think
Hmm.
conscious parenting can mean a lot of different things to people. And just being aware of our parenting is a basic, right? Like knowing that we get to make choices, even if society isn't supporting those choices, maybe like and I think more and more people are moving away towards it. But when I started raising my children 25 years ago, deciding not to spank them made people nervous. Still does on social media, but
Hmm.
things like that, right? But I think the key for me too, and why I love speaking with you about it is that looking at the soul, which could be much older than the little person that you have in front of you, right?
Yeah.
And being able to connect with them and see them from all the perspectives. So,
Hmm.
what inspired you to raise your children in this way?
Well, honestly, you were a huge inspiration, um, because I could see how you parented differently, and you were honoring your kids, but also I think one of the things that I struggled, like, I'm the first to admit it, like, I struggled when I brought my child home from the hospital. My daughter is 5, and I was like and I get really emotional talking about it because this is a passion of mine. Um, like there you were crying last week and now um
Get
but
comfy.
I'm not crying, you're crying. But I just I thought it was going to be flawless. I thought that parenting was going to come so naturally to me. Oh, this is easy. What's the big deal? And I really struggled. I struggled with not sleeping and like I think part of it, how I started to get my flow as a mom was I really started to trust my intuition. So I asked a lot of questions. I remember one day my mom was like, "You don't take my advice." And I'm like, "No, I do, mom. I take it in, I draw it in, and I trust my intuition. And sometimes your advice makes sense, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. And then I don't do it. I don't do what you say." And it was but that's really how I parent. I parent from that perspective of because there are times where I'll reach out to friends who are moms and I'm like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Or what do you think about that? And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're right and I'm wrong. It's just, it's all very fluid. And to be able to say, like, how I parent my daughter is very different than how I parent my son. So for example, my daughter, she gets just like her mom, she really needs her sleep and she gets overtired, and she's a high intuitive, but also very emotional, very connected to her emotions. When she feels so big and so much. And she has to go to bed by 7 o'clock, like no later than that. Whereas my son, who's 2, by the way, he's like, "Mommy, ready, go night night." And I'm like, "All right, we're going night night." And sometimes that's like 7:30, sometimes that's 8 o'clock. But if I tried to parent my daughter like that, the way I parent my son, like, it would be a hot mess because she so that's what I mean, like, it's not we're not trying to control our kids. Yeah, there is some structure, like, I'm pretty sure if I got to 9 o'clock at night, I'd be like, "Come on, little dude, we're going up for bed." But you know what I mean? So that's what I mean about it being fluid, and that's what I mean about it not being one size fits all when we parent in this way.
Yeah, that's that's beautiful. And my kids were two very different kids as well, and they both demanded different parenting.
Mhm.
I'm thinking as you speak, and with my older daughter, well, with my daughter Sarah, she when she was little, early on, we reached a point where we could not, she was not a good sleeper as an infant, and we were exhausted. And we tried the system that was big at that time where you
Like
let
the
him cry
cry it
and you
out
let him cry.
method? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it didn't work. It
Oh,
killed us, but,
yeah.
eventually we got her napping sort of, but not really. Like, she's still terrible at sleeping, and she knows it, and she has been her whole life. And now on TV, there's been a lot of shows that she watches where they're kind of making fun that of it, like, that you shouldn't do that with the parenting, and she's like, "Mom, look at what you did to me." But she's laughing, but, and then my son he was now part of I think that is being different because I was more nervous with the first one, like you, right? So
Mhm.
by the time Justin came along, I'm like, "Sleep in your car seat. The cradle doesn't work," Be right next to me in your car seat. But I also think we know there's different soul personalities. So talk a little bit about that, if you will. Like, you were able to connect with your children before they were even born, and some people may
Mhm.
not have yet, but, even if they're teenagers, you can, and we'll talk about how, things can shift, even learning this now in if your kids are
Mhm.
teenagers. But, yeah, what was it like for you to connect with your kids before they arrived?
So I always knew I was going to have a daughter first. I just knew that. I felt her with me. Even before I met my now husband, who's her dad, and I just always knew that she was with me. And for me, I always tell people that on the other side of the veil, or, when we think about, I don't know, there's a book called Spirit Babies that's out there. I read it, and what's cool about that is being able to meditate, but you don't necessarily have to buy the book Spirit Babies, but being able to really meditate and connect soul to soul. And so whether that is, maybe for somebody, maybe it's doing some prenatal yoga, but this is also where the Consciously Awesome program comes in, because the well, it's kind of guided meditations, but it's way beyond that. These conscious meditations are a way to connect with anyone on that higher vibration and that higher frequency. And that's what I did with both of my kids. I also did some Reiki before they were born. I Reiki'd my belly. I put my hands on my belly every night. And sometimes I put my hands on my heart. Like there was one day that I was like, where's, you know, I just couldn't feel my son's presence with me. And it was really when I was pregnant with him, and I was like, okay, what's going on? And I remember I put my hands on my heart and I just breathed and I felt this warmth all around me and within me. And I just knew, okay, he's here. Like I just knew it. So those are just some ways that and really talk. I think so often we get in our heads and we think like, we try to look at it logically, like this doesn't make sense. So we don't versus like just talk out loud, like have a conversation with your baby who's in the womb, or even your baby that's, maybe you're not quite pregnant yet, but you want to be. You can draw
Yeah.
that baby to you by having those conversations.
Yeah. And then when they're here born, we can continue that. I think that's part of what we're
Hmm.
talking about with conscious parenting, at least in
Hmm.
our version of it.
Hmm.
Is that remembering the souls when they're here, and getting that delicate balance between talking to the soul and talking to the child, and how to navigate that. One of the things that I tell often is that my daughter, she said when she was only like under 3 years old, 2 years old, she's like, I think she was upset with me. She's like, "You didn't used to be the mommy. I used to be the mommy. And the mommy I have most is in heaven." And it's like, "Okay, put me in my place." But then at the same time, I turned back to her and I said, "Yes, but you chose me to be the mommy this time, which means you have to listen to me because that was our deal." You know? So there's that whole like, yes, honoring that this is you chose us. We chose it. I think that's another
Mhm.
belief that I have that influences it. We
Oh,
chose it.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt, but it's
No, go
because
ahead.
that is 1,000% what I believe too, that we choose our parents, we choose our children choose us, and I'm a big proponent of believing that there are no victims, that
Right.
people can go through some really, really messy things in their life. And I'm not saying that people don't go through trauma, but when you can kind of take that step back and recognize that there's times where I'm teaching my children, right? That makes sense. Like
Mhm.
I'm the mom. But let's shift gears for a second. Like when we talk about unconsciously awesome, like being open to being the observer and the participant,
Mhm.
sometimes both at the same time. Sometimes we observe, sometimes we participate. But also looking at it when I think of conscious parenting, that sometimes our children are teaching us.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's asking in every moment, especially when it's difficult. Like, kids are going to have temper tantrums. Like teenagers are going to slam doors. Like it happens, these things happen. And I think sometimes our kids are trying to teach us to stay emotionally present. So I got some really bad news last week, and I was definitely feeling really sad and grieving in a way. And my daughter was like, "Look at me, mom." And I'm like, "I just need a minute. Like, mommy's sad." And I looking back at that, I'm like, I think she was really helping me to stay emotionally present, meaning present
Yeah.
with my emotions, like to really feel my emotions and to not try to numb out in some way with TV or food or being on my phone or social media or whatever, because those are all those things that we sometimes
Right.
do to, or go up into my analytical mind and not really deal with it, but try to problem solve instead of actually feeling what I needed to feel. And so there's those times too, like the times that our kids have those big, big, big emotions, those are reminders for us as parents, where am I at emotionally?
Yeah.
Like, if your kid's yelling, it's like, "Oh gosh, I need to yell." Like, that would feel really good right now. Maybe that's what I need to do too. So, those are those times where when we can start to shift and not look at a temper tantrum as a bad thing,
Mhm.
um, and helping, maybe even validating our kids and to say, "Yeah, you felt scared then? Like, I felt scared too before, and it's okay to feel scared sometimes. Here, do you need a hug? Like, let's hug it out." Like, because versus being like, "Oh, you shouldn't feel scared." I mean, that is so part of our vocabulary, at least as Americans, right? To be like, "Don't be upset, don't be sad, don't be scared." And it's like, "What?" Like, one, that's super invalidating. That's the therapist in me that's like, that is so invalidating. But to really kind of change our language around it, and also to sort of explore our beliefs more. Like, wait, I think it is okay to feel disappointed, especially when we really wanted something to happen and it didn't.
Right.
And can we start to shift gears and look at it in terms of like, hey, that is okay. And let's
Yeah.
support each other rather than trying to convince our children that they shouldn't feel certain emotions.
Right. We're off to a good start. Um, but the other thing you said in there that, I agree with all of that. I think that helping children navigate emotions is really important, and it is looking at our own beliefs because that's how we grow during it. I feel like,
Mhm.
my kids have been my greatest teacher, and um
Yeah.
but also I was their teacher, and I say that, they're my mentor, but I know that they still turn to me and look towards me for things. But you mentioned that you were sad, and you said that to your daughter, and I think that that is so important to me because that validating, we're the ones passing down to this generation how they're going to deal with emotion. And if we don't deal with emotion, then we have issues like we see in the world. um,
Yeah.
but on top of that, for me as a child, I felt a real disconnect whenever a grown up or my mom would say everything was okay, and I could feel that she wasn't okay in that moment. And knowing that she was upset, but telling me everything was okay because she thought
Yeah.
that she should. She was trying to comfort me and not put her burdens on me, and I appreciate that. But what happened is that it made me question my intuition. And now going through life, because my intuition told me, my inner knowing told me that something was wrong. And my mom, who I trusted the most, was telling me everything was okay. And that disconnect, though it seems so slight and not important, um, it it really challenged me for, because I needed my intuition. So I was always so committed to saying, yeah, like letting them see me crying, but also not putting it on
Mhm.
them, saying, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm upset now. But I know it's going to be okay. I just have to feel this first. So that reassurance, and also that you're right, I am angry or I am sad or whatever is going on. I'm scared, but we're going to be all right.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, I mean, one of the things that we really, I mean, oh my gosh, I can get off on a whole tangent about like what you just said because as a kid, I was told that I was too emotional.
I was
And
dramatic, over dramatic.
yeah, dramatic, like too emotional, calm down. Okay, so this is what I think about too. The things that we don't want to hear as adults, like when we're really upset, like if we're angry or frustrated or irritated, we don't want to be told to calm down. And it's interesting how sometimes tell kids to calm down. It's like, wait, 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 that's not what adults want to hear. So it's definitely not what a kid needs to hear either or wants to hear in that moment. So, but I love what you said about not you don't want to give your burdens to your child, but to be able to, there's that delicate balance there, is being able to say, yeah, I am really sad right now. I'm going to work through it. I need to feel sad and I'm going to be okay. Or really, like, it's okay to be sad, because really, isn't it all okay? It really is.
Right.
Like, it's okay to feel sad. And
It's
just like they,
okay for all of it. Yeah.
yeah, just like what, who is it? It's Sven on Frozen 2 when he says, "You feel what you feel, and those feelings are real." And it's so true. I love a good Disney movie, because Disney is like grief, loss, anger, like
Right.
disappointment, sadness, like excitement, passion. Like, talk about all of those emotions, full spectrum for sure.
Right.
So,
That's awesome. What if you were to say to parents out there right now, or we're talking to teachers and neighbors and aunts and uncles and grandparents, but what would you say a couple tips to just get started in if someone was just listening now and thinking, I want I kind of want to go in this direction, but I don't know where I would start. What would be just a couple
okay.
starting points?
So, a couple of starting points is throughout the day. I mean, this came out a couple years ago with the whole concept of once every hour, take a deep breath in, and set a timer on your phone, right? And if you take a deep breath in and let it out during that moment, whether you put your hands on your heart, or if you're like, oh, that's a little too touchy feely for me, Chantel, I can't do that. That's okay. But what I want you to do is I want you to imagine your child in your mind. And as you're taking that deep breath in, I want you to imagine your heart expanding, and that love that you have for your child, no matter where they are, whether they're at school or maybe they're in the next room virtual learning, or maybe they're at soccer practice, or dance, but I want you to actually extend, whether it's, pink light, violet, white light, whatever, maybe it's their favorite color. My daughter's favorite color is purple. And so I just imagine that purple light extending from my heart to her heart,
Mm,
and
that's
doing
beautiful.
that throughout the day. Maybe you're going to start doing that 3 times a day, or maybe you're going to start to do that once every hour, but you'll start to notice a shift with your child, and you'll start to feel more connected to them. And in feeling more connected to them, they'll feel more connected with themselves, and you'll actually feel more connected with yourself. So that's something that's, anybody can do that. Anybody can start that today, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's gorgeous. I love that. Beautiful. We are going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to explore more about using your intuition, connecting to your children's souls in your parenting. We'll kind of hit some different age groups too. So, we'll be right back.
Solivity Magazine and Beyond Words Publishing is pleased to announce its latest charitable partner, the National Museum of African American History and Culture. We ask you to join us in supporting this national treasure of memories and truth to stay alive for generations to come.
Creating this museum gives us a chance to make manifest the dreams of many generations. We call the lost dream back.
This is a milestone moment not only for the Smithsonian, but for the United States.
The goal of the museum is to make America better, provide opportunities for us to be made better by the past, and for us to move towards a future where race will always matter. They will find that those ideals are only met through sacrifice and struggle and a belief in a better day.
This place is more than a building. It is a dream come true.
History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived.
And by knowing this other story, we better understand ourselves and each other. I, too, am American.
We ask you to join us in supporting this national treasure of memories and truth to stay alive for generations to come. Join Solivity Magazine and Beyond Words Publishing for another Truth and Power event. Don't miss our next event celebrating International Women's Month on March 20th at 2 p.m. We'll see you then.
Welcome back to Consciously Awesome Live. We're talking about conscious parenting today, and we're here with Chantel Lockwood. It's great to have you. We're having a great discussion. So, Chantel, just before the break, you gave a tip to connect to the heart center of of the children throughout the day, which is pretty wonderful. What a wonderful way to start. And also, I think we were discussing some, looking at our own beliefs so that we can be aware of it and being in tune with our own emotions and sharing those with the kids. So, can you share, we're talking about the soul connection and getting to know that soul. And I think that heart center is a beautiful way. Do you have any special stories, like those stories that you know me now at the other end of the parenting time frame? I always have those stories that I keep pulling out because they just meant so much to me to get to know my child's soul at that time. Do you have any of those moments that you can share with us? You've only had 5 years, but there's gotta be some.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying. Well, there's one recently, like I went out on Valentine's Day and I just went to the grocery store and I went to buy my daughter some flowers and I just was like, what would she like? And I really focused on like, rather than what would I like, which is a different bouquet than what she would like. And I was like walking around the grocery store and picking up some things. And then I was like, no, this isn't the right bouquet. I just know that it's not right for her. I don't know. Again, that was just my intuition, that little voice. I think that intuition can be different things. It can be that little voice inside our head, that inner knowing. I think sometimes as moms, we call that mother's intuition. But I don't want to limit that to just mothers. Like, I think that that's for, like, I love that you included grandparents and uncles and neighbors and daycare providers and babysitters and dads, because it's everybody. Like, everybody can connect with the children and the teenagers in their life. And so I went back, changed out the bouquet, and when I came home, she said, "Oh, mommy, these are the most beautiful flowers I've ever seen in my entire life." I
Oh.
was like,
Solivity
"Oh my
Magazine and
gosh." Like,
beyond.
it was just
That's wonderful.
yeah,
Aw.
and so I don't know, that instantly came to mind, but I don't know. I feel like I have so many other stories that are way better than that. I know I do have a story that's similar to, your story about talking about how she was saying like, I used to be your mom, or I used to be the mommy. So Eliana told me that she was, this woman named Jane Hopper in a past life and that she lived in Gettysburg. And I was like, wow. So that's part of, for me, kind of coming with this openness and an opportunity to recognize that I think sometimes as parents, we by accident kind of put our beliefs onto our kids, um, versus allowing them. I think this is especially true with teenagers, like, because teenagers they have to be able to have the freedom to navigate, right? Because when you think about an 18-year-old, an 18-year-old needs to be able to like move out and live on their own, whether that's like they go to college a lot of times, but we want free thinkers. We want to teach our children that they should be able to trust their intuition and make some of those decisions. And maybe they're, like, oh, okay, if you want to have purple hair, have purple hair. Like that, coming from that place of not feeling like, if we feel like we need to control our children in any way, then we're not parenting right. Like, I'm just going to say, like, I feel like some people are going to parent that way and that's how they're, but the times that I felt that, there was so much resistance between myself and my children that I was like, this does not feel right to me. This feels more like I'm trying to parent the way I think I should be parenting.
Yeah.
And whenever you should, this is not something I made up. I think I got this from Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, but it's that idea of like, you're shooting all over yourself. We don't want that. Like, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important you're looking at the teenage years now because I think they start now. Although we'll talk about, how you can bring this in later in your parenting. But
Mhm.
I remember when Sarah was young, she was like 3. It was going to preschool. And every morning her dad and she would have an argument about what she was gonna wear. And I would listen to
Oh.
this every morning, and then I finally said to her dad, I'm like, "You need to work this out right now because if not, this is what her teenage years are gonna be like, and you guys are not gonna get along then." And he listened and he shifted, because that was her way of, "I wanna wear what I want," and he wanted her to look really good, But, so I think that just that awareness of and he was able to make that shift easy, and they have a great relationship, but it's that awareness of like, why am I doing what I'm doing, and
Yeah.
catching yourself or having someone there that can catch you, because certainly he caught me in things too, over
Mhm,
the
mhm. Oh,
years.
yeah,
But I
for
think
me.
that, yeah, when we remember, that we're teaching them young, then Justin, when he was a little bit older, not much, he got obsessed at the state fair on the game, like when you went down the strip of the games, and I had to carry him out of the state fair crying and kicking. I thought to myself at that point, he must look a lot like me because these police officers are letting me take this kid out of this place. but but I
That's
thought
funny.
about it and I thought, well, you know what? We've had addiction in our ancestry, and this is an addiction of sorts. And so we worked on it at a little level with him just on those games when we went to amusement parks, and we talked about it, from maybe 4 to 7. And by the time he was 7, he's like, I want to walk down the strip because we stopped walking down it. And he's like, I just want to walk down. And they walked down slowly. And then he walked back. And he's like, okay. And then that behavior was dealt with, and he learned how to deal with it before teenage years when other
Mhm.
things may have been exposed to him. So, and we can't catch everything, but those are things we can do early on. Because
Yes.
um, one of the stories then when we were talking that you, Chantel, said you love to hear of mine because my stories because they've been
I
out there
do.
for a while. But yeah, when Sarah was a teenager, and she used to go to all my events with me, and people had watched her grow up, and Justin didn't. Another way where they're different people, different kids, But at one point when she was a teenager, someone came up after and made a comment, and we're going to talk about this, Chantel, in a minute, but she made a comment about the teenage years being hard, or like a laughing joke about how we probably aren't getting along, or how, she was with her mom on a Friday night, something, that everybody does, because that's what we do in
Mhm.
society. That's how we connect with each other, and I don't. And so it makes it uncomfortable sometimes. Like, when they were younger, I never agreed to be in a laughing conversation or a just go along with the story with any
Yeah.
parent about my kids. And it wasn't that I was trying to make them uncomfortable, but it's like, it's similar to if you're in a a space where someone's saying a racist joke or something, you're like, I'm not going to engage in this. This is not
Yeah.
okay. And so I'm shifting it. And so I said something to that effect, or just didn't, like, well, no, something. And she turned to
Mhm.
Sarah about something, and Sarah said about parenting or something, I don't know what. And Sarah's like, my mom doesn't parent me anymore. And this person just looked at me like, where's Sheila, this person, who's been teaching us for years. What do you
That's
mean?
awesome.
But what she meant is, I don't need to be like, she doesn't have to. She's taught me along the way. I know myself now. I make my own decisions, and she knows that, and she honors me. So we're okay. Like, I didn't have
Yeah, yeah.
rules at the teenage years because we were honoring each other, and I trusted them to know themselves and what they needed to do. So, but you've
Yeah.
had things like that in the younger years.
Oh, yeah, like the whole terrible too. Sorry, I do a lot of air quotes. That's just who I am. I can't change now. But yeah, like the terrible two. Oh, is he a terrible? I get it a lot right now with my son because he is two. So terrible twos, and oh, you know, I don't know, your daughter, like, was she a terrible two or was she a terrible three? And I'm like, I don't, what does that even mean? And so I, plus I'm like, I feel like we should get away from the whole like calling our kids terrible. Like, how about that?
Well, good idea.
Right? I know. We're halfway there. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it's like what we were talking about a little earlier, that parenting has evolved and it needs to continue to evolve. And if not, if we don't start to shift our consciousness, and we're not going to get anywhere, and we're going to continue to feel really stuck as parents. And but yeah, so definitely, um with the whole, that's the first thing that I think of, is like calling my kid terrible. I'm like, oh, okay. Or like, oh, tantrums. And I'm like, okay, adults throw tantrums too. Like, and then I thought having a tantrum is not such a bad thing, because you feel the emotion, right? We talked about that
Right.
in the Consciously Awesome program. You bring the emotion in, you feel it fully, you don't try to resist it, you don't try to push it away. I mean, that is really one of those opportunities where we can fully learn from our kids, because our kids are able to
Right.
embrace their emotions. My son, he throws himself on the floor, he kicks and screams for a little bit and yells no. No is his favorite word. And I'm like, that's okay. Like, and then he goes back to playing like he's happy as can be. So I don't know. Like, I just don't think that any of that's a bad thing. But yeah, I think definitely like ages 2 and 3 got a bad, like sort of a bad rap. I've even heard people tell me that their 8-year-old is grumpy all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, what's that about? Because again, like, I feel like our children's emotions, are they mirroring where we're at emotionally?
Mhm.
If we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed at our job, and we come home and we feel stressed and overwhelmed at home, because and part of that might be because our kids are sort of presenting in a way that's very overwhelming. Well, is that a mirror for us? Is that a mirror to be able to say, okay, what's going on? Like, am I even really happy in this job? Maybe I need to make a change. So it's, again, those opportunities to, I feel like I totally just rambled there. But anyway, opportunities to learn from our kids.
I think yeah, I think that is part of the process all the time. As you were talking, I'm like, wow, I think there's probably some parents out there going, I'm so tired. This sounds like even more work. Like, what can I do? Like, I don't, and we think we both agree. We don't mean like you did anything wrong if you're not doing this. And it's
No.
not
Oh my
about
gosh. No, not
doing
at
all
all.
of this at once or starting
Mm-mm.
early, but it just, yeah. And it's really about freeing yourself when you do want to make that shift. And I did want to talk about, and you may have some experiences as a coach and a therapist with teen parents shifting when their kids are teenagers too. But
Mhm.
I'm thinking, and this has happened a few times, but I'm thinking of one mom who went through the Consciously Awesome program, and her daughter it was a teenage or entering teenage years as she was working with me. And her daughter started calling me her second mom because their relationship shifted so much after her mom worked through these things that she felt so grateful. But they were like, it was a mother and daughter, and they were, single mom and daughter. So it was the two of them, and they were really, really close going into the teenage years. And it was as if she hit that teenage as a mom, she hit the teenage phase, and her mom's parenting or the other, parents at school, and she started thinking, I have to, you start thinking, I got to launch my kid in a few years and I want them to be okay. And so you're like, maybe you're throwing everything on them, trying to make sure you're not going to lose them during the teenage years or something. And so she was doing things that didn't feel in alignment with herself, but they were the right thing to do, the grounding her and
Mm.
setting new boundaries and kind of preparing for the mistakes she was going to make, maybe, and then she started shifting and realizing, and it wasn't by shifting to try to become a better parent. She was trying to find herself. She was taking it for herself and shifting, and in that space of nurturing herself and feeling that new freedom and the new levels of connecting through conscious meditation, she was able to look at it and say, what am I doing? Like, I don't need to do this. I'm seeing her soul too. And that was another thing. At any point during the journey, when you do the meditations and start to get to know your child's higher self, and you start to be like, oh, right, we're on the same team, and she's got it. Like, she's got to
Yeah.
grow into that, but she's got it, or he's got it there. So I think it's really important for everyone to remember that at any point along this path, you can start. And again, I would say it goes back to that connecting to the soul of the
Oh,
child.
definitely. And also like trusting in yourself and trusting in the process because yeah, I think that like maybe for this mother, I don't know exactly how she felt, but to look at the teen years and be like, "Oh no, this is going to be like this great relationship that I had with my daughter, like no more. It's going to be all out the window." And that's simply not true. That it's being able to sort of shift our thinking and how can we connect more with our kids. So, and also to be able to give them those like I went back to like choices, using your intuition and like you said with your daughter, like she can wear whatever she wants to wear. So one of the things that I think about, well, now I'm starting to talk about my daughter, but this is just a really good story and I feel
Go
like
for
this is going to be really good for somebody listening. So every morning for like a month, the snow fell. So this may have been back in December or January. I'd be like, come on. Like I tell my daughter, I'm like, come on, we got to get going. We're going to miss the bus. We got to get in the car, get in the car, get in the car. And then I took a step back one day and I was like, what does she need? What do I need? What I need is for her to get in the car. What does she need? And every time we would leave the house, she wouldn't go right to the car. She would kind of gallivant around the front yard. She'd be eating snow. She loves to eat snow. And she'd be, making a snowball or whatever. And I realized she needs a little outdoor time, right? Because in school, like it's,
Yeah.
when it's winter here, you don't go outside except for maybe once a week and you have to bring your snow pants and maybe it's on a Friday, but if it's really cold and windy, you're not going to be able to go outside. And that's all that makes sense. I'm like, oh, she just needs some outside time and a chance to eat the snow. So I said, okay, well, get your stuff on and then go on out and you can play outside. But you have to be able to see the windows. And if you don't see the window, then that means that mommy can't look out and see you. So I gotta be able to see you. So that gave her at least 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes to be outside, eating snow, making snowballs, watching the squirrels. and she sounds like a dog, watching the squirrels, enjoying nature. And then I would come out with my son, I'd get his jacket and boots on, and okay, come on, honey, we gotta go. And she would walk right to the car. And some
Mm,
mornings I would walk out the front door, and there she would be. She'd be waiting by the car door, ready to go.
right.
Mommy, I tried to get in the car, but the car door was locked. Okay, honey, well, thank you for waiting. Total difference. So when there is a power struggle, it is asking yourself, what do I need? And what does she need? Because I feel like we can find that space where there's love and nurturing. And I know sometimes, like in therapy speak, we call it finding a middle ground or finding a compromise, but recognizing that like what I need and what my child needs is sometimes really different. But it
Mm,
doesn't mean that she's being defiant. Like,
right.
yeah, it's easy to look at that. It's easy to look at that situation and say, "Oh, she was being a, a brat, or she was being defiant." But really, or maybe she didn't want to go to school, or maybe but no, it wasn't any of that stuff. And to be able to really see her for the person that she is, and that she just really needed to have some snow time. Go out,
Right.
get your snow time, girl. Okay. Instead of like, and it was a total game changer. And yeah, so
I think, yeah, I like that. Well, that is a great story. And, the really see her. That's the point. Really see her.
see
And
her.
really see her, really see him, really see them. And that openness and willingness to do that. And then to let them really see us. I apologize to my children when I don't,
Oh, yeah,
when I
me
don't
too.
perform at my best ability. I say, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
I
And
apologize. Not, you're right and I'm wrong necessarily,
yeah,
but like, I got stressed and I could have done that better.
yeah, you
These
know what?
were my
Mommy's gonna take a little redo.
I need
Let
to
me
talk.
just, I'm backing up the tape. We're starting over again. Yeah, it's just like that. Or I can't tell you, like, if you are so focused on a to-do list, get rid of the to-do list. And we talk about that in Consciously Awesome during our, what is it, week 7, is being able to just get rid of the to-do list and focus more on, or if you're like, Chantel, I have to get the laundry done. The laundry's not going to fold itself. Okay. Then take the laundry and either have your kid, hey, I want to see how your day was. I want to chat with you. Like, help me sort the socks so we can talk, right? Being able to spend time with our children while also getting some things done that we need to get done. Or sometimes I'll fold the laundry while my kids are playing so I can see them. I'm really watching them. The laundry is not more important than my kids. It's just not. Like, that's what I always think about as a mom. I do a lot of like crock pot meals because, and sometimes I'm like, whatever, we're having frozen pizza because I don't want to be out in the kitchen not spending time with them. We don't get a ton of time with our kids because, they're in school and we have work and all that. And so we have to kind of maximize and slow down that time that we do have with them as much as we possibly can.
I like
Um,
that.
and to really look at them. How often do we really look at our children
Yeah.
and really like see them and really like grab their little hands, not like this, but like, and just really look in their eyes and get down at their level
Yeah.
physically, like, or
Mm.
play on the floor or go out and, you know, make snow angels with them and throw snowballs. Although this is like the middle of March, so I'm like, this is winter advice. I feel like I need to give spring advice,
There's
but
hope that spring is on its way.
spring's on its way. But to be able to,
Well, for our
mommy, look at
Australia
that
listeners, they're
sunset.
coming soon.
Yeah. But like when my daughter's like, look at that sunset. It is so beautiful. Like that's the kind of stuff that,
Yeah.
mommy can't look at the sunset. Mommy's driving. No, you can look at the sunset, people. Come on.
They're good reminders to that. And now for me, with my kids grown, I will tell you, it goes really fast, and I don't regret the time that my house was dirty. There's plenty of time to clean it if I want, now there's not little kids coming, there's not all those papers coming home from school every day. So just
I know, right?
that goes away. That goes away. So, but we joked about cleaning the house up to get ready for the show. Like it's a real
Oh,
life
yeah.
behind the scenes, and there is a toy
Yeah.
down there if you look in Chantel's.
There's a whole bookshelf behind me that I am hiding with my
There we
like, you
go.
could
Yeah.
see, like, Moana and some puzzles and
So I would say my tip, and then before we close, I'll let you give them one more tip. But my tip is, don't be hard on yourself. It goes so fast, and like you said, there's time. Eventually, their stuff is cleaned up, and they'll move out, and you will miss it.
yeah.
So, try to be as okay as you can with the chaos, and when you can't, then forgive yourself. And
Yeah, and if they make a mess of the mirror, then throw on the cloth and be like, "Oh, just go ahead and clean it up. Hey, I'll hang out with you. Let's sing a song while we do that." Like
My
just
mom used to have us play car wash, and that was dusting the whole living room. She'd give us rags and tell us we were playing car wash, and we cleaned all the furniture like cars.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Oh my gosh.
Yes, so
Oh, I love
Chantel,
that.
it has been awesome having you here today. I can't believe how fast the time goes when we start chatting.
I know. Oh my gosh.
But,
Yes.
I'm thinking that you have a consciously awesome program coming up, and I'll let you talk about that. But I know you offer discovery sessions, and I'm thinking that there might be some parents out there that would like a 20-minute or 30-minute conversation with you for free, or maybe a little meditation to help them to connect or go to that next level with their parenting, or teachers, or all those people. So
Yes, absolutely.
go
So
ahead and
feel
tell them a little
free
bit about it.
to you can go to consciouslyawesome.com and you can click on the free discovery session, but I think it's also is it a virtual cup of coffee? Is
Yes,
the
it's a virtual cup of coffee, and you can
Yeah,
have tea or water or whatever you
that's
want, coffee.
right. We're very flexible here. So yeah, or you can email me your conscious life coach at gmail.com. And we can set up 20 or 30-minute discovery session. So again, that's your conscious life coach at gmail.com. I know that's a mouthful. Or also go to consciouslyawesome.com and sign up for, the virtual cup of coffee. So, because I love that, I love doing the groups. I think it's fantastic because it just enriches the program and takes it on to a much, much deeper level. It's amazing how in sync everybody in the group is. So, um, my group is starting up in a week, actually, or a week and a day. So it's starting up on the 18th, and it's a 12-week program. And I'm just going to say it. It's awesome. It really is. So it will completely transform your life for the better. So, yeah, that's
Awesome.
all I got.
All right. Well, thank you, Chantel. It has been such a pleasure to have you on and to do life with you, and watching you become a
Oh,
parent, and
thank
um,
you.
it's a beautiful thing, and it's an honor to also have you as a consciously awesome facilitator. So thank you so much. And I do encourage anyone interested to reach out to Chantel, even if it's just for a little conversation, and tell her you're interested in discovery, and just, take another tip or two just for you. So thank you all for listening. And we want to thank Brian Johnson, our producer and the founder, creator of So Liberty TV. Awesomeness, for being here with us today and getting us all excited to talk, getting us all revved up and ready to go. Next week, I'm going to have another incredible guest. We have Ava Andrea, who will be coming to talk about magical writing, bringing your soul into creative writing. So that's for people who just think maybe they would like to write, who want to write letters, write better social media posts, or who have a book inside of them, any of that, the whole spectrum. Join us next week at the same time, Wednesdays at 1. And be sure to check out the new show here on Solivity TV that came in just at the same time I did, and that is Higher